Right now, your phone is talking. Not to you, not to anyone you know, not to any service you consciously use or any app you deliberately opened. Your phone is broadcasting a signal, continuously, automatically, invisibly, to any device within range that wants to listen. And in most public spaces you move through, stores, malls, airports, stadiums, hotels, there are devices specifically designed to listen for exactly that signal and record where you are, how long you stayed, and where you went next. You did not consent to this. You were almost certainly never informed it was happening. And turning off your location services, the setting that most people reach for when they want privacy, does not stop it. This is Bluetooth tracking. And it is one of the most widespread, least understood surveillance systems operating in the world right now. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how it works, who is buying the data it collects, why the privacy features your phone manufacturer told you about do not fully protect you, and what you can actually do to reduce your exposure. Let us start with what your phone is actually broadcasting and why. The advertising packet. You never agreed to send every modern smartphone, iPhone, and Android alike runs a technology called Bluetooth Low Energy, commonly abbreviated as BLE. BLE was designed to enable low-power communication between devices for legitimate purposes. Health monitors connecting to phones, wireless earbuds pairing, smart home devices communicating, these are the use cases that Bluetooth Low Energy was built for. But BLE has a behavior built into its protocol that serves a very different purpose in the commercial world. Your phone continuously broadcasts what is called an advertising packet. This is a small bundle of data that your phone transmits at regular intervals, advertising its presence to other Bluetooth devices in the area. The advertising packet contains identifiers that allow nearby devices to recognize your phone. In its most basic form, this identifier is connected to your device's hardware. The advertising packet is not asking to connect to anything. It is not responding to a connection request from another device. It is simply announcing that your phone exists and is in the area automatically, continuously, without requiring your active involvement. Now consider what Bluetooth beacons are and why they are deployed in commercial spaces. A Bluetooth beacon is a small device, often no larger than a smoke detector, that is permanently installed in a retail space, a shopping mall corridor, an airport terminal, or any other location where tracking visitor behavior is commercially valuable. The beacon does not initiate a connection with your phone. It does not need to. It simply listens for the advertising packets that your phone is already broadcasting. When your phone's advertising packet enters the beacon's detection range, the beacon records it. Your phone's identifier, the time, and the beacon's location are logged. When you move to a different part of the store and enter the range of a different beacon, that gets logged too. When you leave and enter a different store with its own beacon network, that gets logged. The result is a physical movement map, your path through a shopping mall, the specific stores you entered, how long you spent in each section, which products you stood near, where you went next. All of this assembled from the continuous Bluetooth advertising packet your phone never stopped broadcasting. You did not connect your phone to anything. You did not scan a QR code or join a Wi-Fi network. You simply walked through a public space with a smartphone in your pocket, which you do every day. And someone mapped your movements. The myth that you are safe without pairing. The most common misconception about Bluetooth tracking is that it only works if your device is connected or paired to something. This feels intuitive. You know about Bluetooth because you use it to connect headphones or speakers. You know that connection requires your active permission. So if you have not connected to anything, you must not be trackable. This is wrong. Bluetooth beacon tracking does not require connection, pairing, or any interaction whatsoever from you. The beacon is passive from your perspective. It only listens. Your phone is the active party, continuously broadcasting its presence through the advertising packet. The beacon simply receives what your phone is already sending. The distinction matters because it means the primary mental model most people use to think about Bluetooth security, if I have not connected to anything I am safe, is precisely backwards. The vulnerability does not come from connections you initiate. It comes from signals your phone broadcasts without you doing anything at all. This is why turning off Wi-Fi and being careful about which networks you join does not protect you from Bluetooth beacon tracking. These are different systems using different radio frequencies with different vulnerabilities. You can have Wi-Fi turned off and still be broadcasting your location through BLE continuously. Why MAC address randomization is not enough. At this point, some technically informed readers will be thinking about MAC address randomization, the privacy feature that both Apple and Google have built into their operating systems, specifically to address Bluetooth tracking concerns. Your phone's MACI address is the hardware identifier that the advertising packet contains. If that identifier is always the same, then tracking across locations and over time is straightforward. The same identifier appearing at a beacon in one store and a beacon in another store tells the tracking system that the same device made both visits. MAC address randomization changes the identifier your phone broadcasts at regular intervals, generating a new random address that cannot be linked to previous addresses. If the identifier changes frequently, the theory goes, a beacon network cannot build a continuous movement profile because it cannot link your appearance at one beacon to your appearance at another. The tracking industry found a way around this, and the workaround is sophisticated enough that it deserves serious attention. Radio fingerprinting. Every physical device that broadcasts radio signals has slight imperfections in the hardware that produces those signals. The oscillator that generates the carrier frequency, the amplifier that boosts the signal, the antenna that radiates it. These components have manufacturing tolerances that mean no two devices produce exactly identical radio signals even when broadcasting nominally identical data. These hardware imperfections produce a unique pattern in the radio signal that is measurable by sufficiently sophisticated receivers. It is analogous to a fingerprint. The same hardware always produces the same pattern of imperfections, regardless of what data the signal carries or what identifier the device has been told to broadcast. A beacon network with radio fingerprinting capability can identify your phone not by its MAC address, which randomization changes regularly, but by the characteristic radio signature of its hardware, which randomization cannot change because it is a physical property of the device itself. MAC address randomization was a genuine privacy improvement. Radio fingerprinting was the tracking industry's response. This is the arms race dynamic that characterizes the relationship between privacy features and surveillance technology. Every defensive improvement gets a commercial response from an industry with significant financial incentives to maintain its tracking capability. Understanding this dynamic is important because it prevents the false comfort of believing that a privacy feature, once implemented, solves the problem it was designed to address. Who is buying the movement data and why the Bluetooth beacon? Tracking infrastructure deployed in commercial spaces does not exist primarily to help individual stores count visitors. It exists to feed a global data broker market that is worth over $20 billion annually, and that supplies movement data to buyers whose purposes span from the commercial to the deeply consequential. Advertisers are the most obvious buyers. Physical movement data tells advertisers where you spend time, which stores you enter, which products you stand near, and how your physical behavior correlates with your subsequent online activity. An advertiser who knows you spent 20 minutes in the athletic shoe section of a sporting goods store last Thursday can target you with shoe advertising in a way that is informed by physical behavior rather than purely digital signals. Insurance companies are buyers whose interest in movement data is less intuitive, but potentially more consequential for individuals. If your movement patterns, your regular visits to certain locations, your physical behavior in the world can be analyzed to assess risk, insurance pricing can be adjusted based on physical behavior in ways that are not disclosed to the person being assessed. Employers are buyers in contexts that may not be immediately obvious. Background screening, risk assessment, verification of claimed activities. Physical movement data provides a behavioral record that serves multiple purposes in employment contexts. Political campaigns are buyers whose interest in movement data connects to voter identification, persuasion targeting, and turnout modeling. Physical attendance at certain types of locations, religious institutions, union halls, political events, provides behavioral signals about political orientation that campaigns find valuable for targeting. None of these buyers are acquiring your movement data directly from the stores and venues you visit. The movement data flows from venue operators to data aggregators who combine information from multiple sources and sell processed profiles to buyers. The chain between the beacon that recorded your presence in a store and the insurance company that used that presence data to adjust your premium involves multiple intermediaries, none of whom you have a direct relationship with or any awareness of. The global data broker market scale, over $20 billion annually, reflects how valuable physical movement information is to the range of buyers who want it. That value is extracted from the daily movements of ordinary people who have no knowledge that their movements are being recorded, aggregated, and sold. Ultrasonic cross-device tracking. The method you have probably never heard of. Bluetooth beacon tracking is widely used and increasingly understood by privacy researchers, but there is a more sophisticated tracking method that deserves attention because it is less known and operates through a vector that most people would never suspect. Ultrasonic cross-device tracking uses sound. Specifically, it uses sound at frequencies above the range of human hearing, typically above 18 kilohertz that cannot be consciously perceived, but that smartphone microphones can detect. The mechanism works like this. An advertisement, whether on a television, a computer screen, a digital display in a store, or even a radio broadcast, embeds an ultrasonic tone in its audio. This tone is inaudible to human ears. An app on your phone with microphone permission that is running in the background, or that has been granted microphone access for a purpose you considered legitimate, can detect this tone through the phone's microphone. The tone contains encoded information about the advertisement, the location, and the time. When the app detects the tone, it records that your device was in proximity to that advertisement at that time and place. This information is transmitted to the tracking infrastructure alongside your device identifiers. The result is a location fix that does not depend on GPS, does not depend on Bluetooth, and does not depend on any network connection your device has made. It depends only on your phone having a microphone, which every smartphone has, and an app with microphone permission having detected an inaudible tone that you never knew was there. Ultrasonic cross-device tracking has been documented in apps available through official app stores. Research has identified SDK components, software libraries that developers incorporate into their apps that include ultrasonic tracking capability. The developers whose apps include these SDKs may not even be fully aware of every capability the SDK provides. The tracking infrastructure is embedded in the development tools that build the apps, rather than being an explicit feature that individual developers chose to implement. This is the most invasive of the tracking methods discussed here because it involves active listening through your phone's microphone for signals you cannot perceive and did not know to consent to. The settings that actually reduce your exposure. With that understanding of how the tracking actually works, here are the specific settings changes that meaningfully reduce your exposure on both iPhone and Android. On iPhone, open Settings. Tap Privacy and Security. Tap Bluetooth. You will see a list of apps that have requested Bluetooth permission. For each app, ask yourself whether that app's function genuinely requires Bluetooth access. Navigation apps sometimes use Bluetooth for vehicle integration. Fitness apps use it for health monitors. Music apps use it for speakers and headphones. These may have legitimate Bluetooth needs. For every app that does not have an obvious, specific reason to use Bluetooth, tap it and set Bluetooth access to never. Social media apps do not need Bluetooth. Shopping apps do not need Bluetooth unless they offer in-store features you actively use. Productivity apps, news apps, and most utility apps have no legitimate Bluetooth requirement. Next, go back to Privacy and Security and tap Location Services. For each app in the list, consider whether the location access level it has matches what it actually needs. Apps that do not require location at all should be set to never. Apps that only need location when you are actively using them should be set to while using the app rather than always. Very few apps have legitimate reasons to access your location always. When you're not actively using Bluetooth for a specific purpose, turn it off. Settings, then the Bluetooth toggle in the main settings page, or swipe down to Control Center and tap the Bluetooth icon. Turning off Bluetooth entirely, when you're not using it, stops the BLE advertising packet broadcast and eliminates beacon tracking for the duration. On Android, open Settings, tap Location. Look for a setting called Bluetooth Scanning or Wi-Fi Scanning, which may be grouped under Advanced or Location Services subsettings. Bluetooth scanning is a setting that allows apps and the Android system to scan for Bluetooth devices even when Bluetooth is turned off. This setting was designed for legitimate purposes, like improving location accuracy by detecting nearby Bluetooth infrastructure. It also means that turning off Bluetooth does not fully stop your device from detecting and responding to Bluetooth signals if this setting is enabled. Turn off Bluetooth scanning. This ensures that when you turn off Bluetooth, the system is not continuing to scan in the background through this separate mechanism. Go to Settings, Apps, and work through the app list, checking Bluetooth permissions under each app's permission section. Revoke Bluetooth access from any app that does not have a clear, specific need for it. Go to Settings, Location, App Permissions, and audit which apps have location access and at what level. Apply the same standard as iPhone. Never for apps with no location requirement, while using for apps that need location only during active use, and review any apps with always access critically. Turn off Bluetooth when not in use through Settings or the Quick Settings panel on both platforms. For ultrasonic tracking specifically, the relevant permissions are microphone access. Go through your app lists and audit which apps have microphone permission. For any app that has microphone access without a clear reason you requested it, such as voice functionality, audio recording, or video calls, revoke microphone permission. Be particularly attentive to shopping apps, retail apps, or any app associated with businesses that operate physical locations with advertising. These are the app categories most likely to include SDK components with ultrasonic tracking capability. The privacy argument that goes beyond personal comfort. The most common response to privacy concerns about Bluetooth tracking is some version of the statement that the person has nothing to hide. If the concern is commercial advertising, and if the data collected is used only to show relevant advertisements, the personal cost seems minimal, and the intrusion seems acceptable. This framing deserves a direct response, not because the nothing to hide argument is made in bad faith, but because it rests on assumptions that the evidence does not support. The first assumption is that the data is used only for advertising, and only in ways that are benign. The buyers of movement data include insurance companies and employers, whose use of that data can have material consequences for people's lives that go far beyond seeing a shoe advertisement. The data you generate today does not have a fixed use. It exists in databases that can be accessed for purposes not yet defined, sold to buyers not yet identified, and used in context not yet relevant to your current situation. The second assumption is that the concern is purely personal. Physical movement, surveillance, infrastructure does not select its targets based on whether they have something to hide. It is indiscriminate. The same beacon network that records your movements records the movements of domestic abuse survivors trying to establish new routines, activists whose physical associations might be used against them in hostile political environments, and people whose medical conditions or personal relationships they have legitimate reasons to keep private. Privacy is not primarily about what you personally are comfortable disclosing. It is about the kind of surveillance infrastructure you accept as normal in the spaces everyone shares. Accepting pervasive physical tracking as the cost of using a smartphone normalizes a surveillance capability that exists for everyone, including people whose situations make that surveillance genuinely dangerous. The settings changes described in this video take less than 15 minutes to implement. They do not prevent all tracking, given the sophistication of methods, like radio fingerprinting. But they meaningfully reduce the most accessible tracking vectors and demonstrate that the capability to limit surveillance exists and is worth using. Share this with people you care about, not because everyone needs to become a privacy expert, but because the most effective protection against surveillance infrastructure is distributed awareness. The beacon network that tracked your movements today did so because your phone was broadcasting by default. Changing the default is a choice that's available right now. Make it.